Hi everyone, Mark Johnson here, and welcome to another MJ Guitar TV. This video today is a little bit different here. I'm going to be talking about my wife, Joan. And some of you may know or may not know, she died 2 years ago, January the 15th, 2023. Now, some of you might not be interested in a video like this. You know, it's less guitar related than some of the other videos we do. And that's okay. I understand. We can still be friends. There will be other guitar videos that will be coming. But it's important for me for a couple of reasons to do this video. One of them is because Joan was a important part to MJ Guitars. She was there from the very beginning. We were married 46 years, and she was there. She was there for the bad times, which there was more bad times than good times, but she was there through it all. And a lot of my customers here, when they found out that Joan had died, they just commented on what a nice woman she was and how pleasant it was. You know, when they would call up on the phone, it would usually be Joan that would be answering the phone. And they said that she was just a wonderful person to deal with. And so I have to do this video in recognition of her and all that she did to support MJ Guitars over the years. And then the other reason why I want to do this video is to let you know how all of this came about. Well, we'll just get started in here. About 5 years ago now, she was sitting on the couch and she was complaining that her left arm hurt, and it was swollen up, and it had this kind of a purple look to it, and she thought she was having a heart attack. And so she called me over. She said, "Mark, come over here. What do you think? Do you think I should go to the emergency room?" Well, if it were me, if the situation were switched, I probably would have waited until my arm fell off, and then maybe I'd go to the emergency room. But this wasn't about me. This was about Joan. She was the only one that knew how she felt there. And so it was her decision to make. And I told her, I said, "Hon," that's what I'd call her, hon. I'd say, I said, if you think you need to go to the emergency room, then we'll go to the emergency room. I'll support you. And so we went, and they hooked her up to all kinds of devices and trying to figure out what it was. And what they found was in her chest, right above the heart, where all those arteries that come out of the heart, there was a mass there. It was a tumor. And evidently that tumor was growing, and as it grew, it was shutting off the blood supply. Now, in this particular case, it was the returning blood supply into the heart. So it was the blood that was coming back out of the arm into the heart. And it was a little bit beyond what the doctors here in our area felt comfortable doing. And so they recommended that a physician in San Francisco at UCSF. So we made an appointment to meet with him, and of course it was on Zoom because this was all during COVID that this was happening. And so he looked at the charts, all the pictures, X-rays, scans, all that kind of stuff, and he said, you know, this is a hard one here. He says, I don't know if we can get this, and the reason is because over the years this tumor was growing into all these blood vessels there. And so they would have to cut out a lot of those blood vessels just to get that tumor out. And it would have to have been a bloodless surgery because, well, it was Joan's wish that it be that way. And I supported her on that. So the next thing they wanted to determine was it cancer? And so they had this long needle here, and they shoved that thing through her chest. There was a bone right there, but it went through that bone, and they took a biopsy, and yep, it turns out it was cancer. So that made the potential for an operation even harder. Because if you know anything about cancer here, once you cut into a tumor, if you don't get the whole thing, then it's just going to spread throughout the whole body. I think of it, you know, that like a dandelion. There's that little dandelion puffball, and you blow on that thing, and those seeds just, oh boy, they go everywhere. And that's what it's like. So for those reasons, they decided, no, we can't do this. But we recommend that maybe we can shrink it by doing chemo. And so there at UCSF, she met with an oncologist and started doing chemo. And I think that lasted for about 5 weeks. I'm not really sure. But we had to go down there several times a week to UCSF in San Francisco, which we live about 60 miles north of San Francisco. But it was during COVID, and so, you know, that people were working from home, and so there wasn't a lot of commuter traffic. So that was kind of a good thing. And so she went to completed the treatment, and then they looked at it again, and you know, it shrank a little bit. Now originally it was about the size of a lime or lemon, and so it shrank a little bit, but they really weren't sure what it was yet or what type of cancer it was. That too, that's an important thing. If you know anything about cancer, you know, they have their own signature, different types of cancer. And so they found that there's different medications that work best for certain types of cancer. And so if they knew what type of cancer it was, then they would know what kind of cocktail to make to treat the cancer. And so we did eventually find out what type of cancer it was. Now this little mass that's in her chest was the thymus. And this is a very rare type of cancer. Now the thymus is, I don't know if it's a gland or a, you know what it is. But anyway, it produces T cells that are necessary to fight disease. And so while the baby is in the mother's womb, the thymus is manufacturing these T cells. And by the time you reach puberty, then you've got all the T cells you're ever going to need. And so the thymus now no longer has a purpose, and so I guess it goes dormant. And so in Joan's case, the thymus turned cancerous. So now they were able to shrink it a little bit, but they couldn't kill it. And so they thought, well, maybe if we do radiation, that would kill it. And so she agreed that she would do radiation. And so we had to, again, go to UCSF. And this time, 5 days a week. We would go there for 6 weeks for her radiation treatment. And so we completed that, and that too had some small effect on it, but the tumor was not dead. Even though it shrank a little bit, she got a little bit of relief in her arm. It was just going to come back. Now, radiation is kind of an interesting thing. I think it's indiscriminate. In other words, radiation will kill anything it comes in contact with. Like if you have something in front of what you want to attack with radiation, well, it'll attack that too. Good or bad, it doesn't care. Whatever's behind, it'll attack that too, good or bad. So a person, if they're faced with that option of radiation, I think it would be good to ask all the questions there. Understand the risks of it. Because in Joan's case, the risk was great. You see, behind the thymus is a spine. And in the spine, there's all kinds of plumbing that's going up and down there, electrical, all kinds of stuff. And so the radiation killed the nerve that controls the diaphragm. And so Joan had a hard time breathing after that. The diaphragm was stuck in one position. I can't remember if it was stuck up or down. I don't know. I can't remember. But what I do know is she could not lay down and breathe. If she laid down for a length of time, I imagine she would suffocate. And so for a year and a half, she slept sitting up. Can you imagine that? I mean, that was sad to see that. And when you have to sleep in that position, you don't get into your deep sleep. She would get into the REM sleep. And you know, that's the part of your sleep where you do your dreaming. And so you kind of have to look at the bright side of this, you know. She was always dreaming. And because she was always dreaming, she was always talking in her sleep. And so she would say some of the funniest things. Well, that's all UCSF could do for her. And so we came back to Sonoma County, and we were at the cancer center here in Sonoma County. And so they wanted to do another round of chemo. So she did that. See, that's round 2 of chemo. And again, all of these things, you know, they have some limited effect, but they just could not, they couldn't kill that tumor. And because of that, you know, she always ran that risk of it coming back. That was very real. So anyway, she went through that round of chemo. And then the oncologist said, you know, there's a new program here where they're trying to approve this cocktail of drugs for another type of cancer. And so we would recommend that you enroll in that program, so they could get FDA, FBI, CIA approval. I don't know, some acronym approval they were trying to get for that drug. And so again, that was to last about 6 weeks. She couldn't last 6 weeks. After about 3 weeks, she says, Mark, I'm done. You know, you have to look at quality of life. And right now, the quality of her life was not good. And so she, you know, said, you know, I don't want to undergo treatment anymore. Well, one day, my son and his family, they came by the house on a Saturday, and, you know, they wanted to see Grandma and see how she was doing, you know, kind of try and cheer her up a little bit. And my granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, Lauren, she goes, hey, Grandma, let's check your oxygen levels. And so we put that on her finger, and her oxygen levels were low 80, high 70s. That's terrible. And fortunately, she checked, because Joan wasn't doing well, you know. But she always tried to have a smile on her face, you know, especially when the grandkids came around. And so my daughter-in-law, Ethan's wife, Sarah, well, she's a registered nurse, and she said, this is not good. You need to get her to the emergency room now. So this was about Saturday, a little bit after 12:30. We got her to the emergency room right around 1 o'clock. Again, they hooked her up to put jumper cables on her, you know, hooked her up to a battery charger and all kinds of other stuff, oxygen, you know, you name it. She was on it. And so I sat with her until I think it was 7 o'clock. And then I said, hey, hon, I'm going to go home now, and I'll be back in the morning. And so I went home, and a little bit after midnight, I got a phone call, and it was the hospital. Mr. Johnson, you need to get here right away, as fast as possible. Okay, all right. Now, 2 things here. First of all, I almost never sleep with my phone next to the bed. It's usually in the living room. on an end table there. But this night, it was next to my bed. I also sleep very soundly, and the chances of me hearing something, pretty slim. I heard it. I picked up on the second ring there, and I was off. Well, we had another problem here. You see, when I first took Joan to the hospital on the 14th of January, my car was almost on empty. And so, I got to the hospital there, and on the way home, I go, okay, I gotta stop and get gas. But that's probably one of the things that I hate most in the world, in life, is going to a gas station. So I go, I'll get it in the morning. Well, I got that phone call late at night there, and these new cars, they'll tell you how far you can go until you're absolutely out of gas. It may have been 4 to 6 miles, and that car, that's as far as it was going to go. Well, the hospital was maybe 20 miles away. Okay, so I knew where the nearest gas station was. Now, that's a handy bit of information if you want to, if you're the kind of person that likes to drive around on empty. I didn't know this at the time, but a lot of gas stations, they'll pump gas 24/7, with a credit card. And so I got there, and I got gas. By the way, it's a little chilly out here, and when that happens, my nose starts to run. But I'm out here on a trail, hiking in the woods. So anyway, I get gas, and I'm off to the hospital. I get into the parking lot of the hospital, and I get another phone call. Mr. Johnson, are you on your way? And I go, yeah, I'm in the parking lot here. And they go, okay, we'll have someone meet you in the lobby, and they'll escort you to the room. Okay, all right. So I get escorted to the room. Well, she's not in the ICU anymore. She's in a room, dark room, quiet room, nobody else in that room. And so I get there, and she is not hooked up to very many things. In fact, oxygen is the only thing that she's hooked up to. And they had given her a shot of morphine prior to that, and so she was very quiet, and she wasn't conscious. And they said, what is Joan's wish when it comes to end of life? I said, well, it's her wish that she not be hooked up to anything to keep her alive artificially. And I go, is the oxygen keeping her alive artificially? They said, yeah. I said, well, might as well disconnect it. And so they did. They disconnected it. Gave her another shot of morphine. I'm calling the kids, my daughter Deidre. Oh, they live 5 minutes away from the hospital. Boom, they were there right away. And we tried calling my son. He lives a little bit further away. We got in touch with them, and they're on their way. By this time, it's about 11:45. And I'm sitting there in that room. My daughter and her husband are there. And I'm holding my wife's hand. And I can I heard her die. And so I told Deidre, I said, go get the nurse. And so they got the nurse, and the nurse came and checked her vitals, and sure enough, she was dead. And then Ethan and his family showed up shortly after that. So anyway, that's the story of how it happened. Another reason why I wanted to tell you this story here, I'm going to turn around and start walking back. You know, I've been walking uphill this whole way and kind of running out of breath, you know. Although I do like to hike, and I come out here often, I run out of breath every time. So the reason here that I wanted to talk to you about this is to impress upon you, and you probably, and I know you don't need this here from me, but I think this just illustrates how short and how fragile life really is. And we want to make the best use of it that we can, because none of us know what tomorrow is going to bring. Also, if you're in a relationship, you know, do everything you can to make that relationship work. It's not worth living alone. You know, it's not you against your mate. Think of it as you and your mate against the problem. And there's no problem that isn't too big, that you can't come together, find a solution, and make it work. All right? That's all I got to say. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you at the next time. All right?